As a child and younger student, I dreaded the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? I always felt that everyone had an answer to the question, but I didn't have an answer. I would change my answer depending on the time of day, what side of the bed I woke up on, you know. It was just one of those things. I didn't have a favorite subject. I didn't have a least favorite subject. It was just all the same to me. And the older I got, the more the question stressed me out. It was not that I lacked ambition or that I was careless. It's just that I just didn't know the answer to the question. I mean, come on, it's okay if at the age of 5 or 10 or 15 or 20, you don't know the answer to the question, but by the time you get to 30, it's a bit unacceptable and it's a bit embarrassing because let's face it, you're a grown-up now. So at some point, you really want to be able to have an answer to the question, because how else can you set a goal for something that you don't know? Nevertheless, I find this question a bit unfair. It asks us what future function we would like to play in society, but it doesn't give us a nice, neat list of the options and the alternatives and the consequences. And as a side note, let me just say that the list that's available to us and that's presented to us is very much related to our socioeconomic situation. However, we have a conundrum here then. It's difficult to want to or plan to become something in life if you don't know anything about what you want to do or that it doesn't even exist yet. According to Kathy N. Davidson of the annual MacArthur Foundation Digital Media and Learning Competitions, 65% of today's grade school children may end up doing something that hasn't even been invented yet. So we see that this question that was designed to help us think about its future has some limitations. So now here's my idea. How about we supplement the what do you want to be question with another question and correspondingly add a new metaphor for life? And I think, what's one more metaphor for life? We have life as a journey, life as an echo. We have life as a war, life as a jungle. Some even see life as a box of chocolates. But my proposal is that we understand life as one big bookshelf. And this bookshelf is the master repository of all the forms of wisdom and knowledge that have been passed down from generations before us. And these are in form of written forms, oral traditions, music, arts, entertainment, sports, you name it. And the question that I would like to propose is, what can you leave on the shelf? As opposed to the what do you want to be question, which is a functional role-based question, which a lot of times leads to the career that you want to do. The what can you leave on the shelf question, it's a strategic question. It's a big picture question. It helps us to think about our place in society in broader strokes. One of the limitations of the what do you want to be question is that it's phrasing is self-centered, let's just admit it. Because when we attempt to answer the question, we need to determine the values that we will use to come up with that answer. Will the role that we decide to play, will it be determined by how much money we want to make, how much utility we think we will find out of the role? Is it something that's a tradition, the family business, where you come from 10 generations of plumbers, electricians, doctors, lawyers, priests? Is it something that sounds impressive? Is it something that can help society? Is it some of the above, none of the above, all of the above? It doesn't matter how we come up with the answer. The process is completely and entirely focused on us. On the other hand, the shelf question, it offers a bit more balance. It requires us to take stock of our strengths, but then we have to look outside of ourselves and identify a problem that we would like to solve or maybe help solve, some wrong we would like to right, or some kind of innovation that we would like to add to the table. So let's take a closer look at what it means to add something to the shelf. In formal and informal education, we study the wisdom and knowledge of people that have gone before us. And let's look at the structured education system, where we typically engage the shelf. So in a primary school class, children would take books off the shelf, they would read them, they would discuss them, and then we test them on their ability to recall key content, to analyze it, to apply it to another domain. And then we verify and validate that they understand and that they know, and then we move on to the next book. But while the ability to compare and analyze is important, a great measure of intelligence is not just knowing and understanding what's on the shelf, it's that ability to reach up and push the books that are already there over and add something to the shelf yourself. There's a reason why you do not get your PhD without adding a dissertation to the shelf. We need to send the message that the purpose of studying these books on the shelf is to be able to add something eventually, either by writing something new or by continuing something that has already started. And this is how we further development, by creating a culture which calls on everyone to add to the collective knowledge bank. The notion of creating a legacy is really not alien to children. They're quite aware of how to secure their legacies via accomplishments that we enshrine in trophy cases, or the words of wisdom they leave for us on bathroom stalls or on the science school labs, on the lab stools. But let's encourage them to see their lives as a book that will be left on a shelf for someone else to read, one that they will be responsible for determining the content and the value. Now, some children may be quite capable of leaving something on the shelf well before they graduate high school. Others may start a draft or have an outline that they will be working on for the rest of their lives. They're all different, they're writing different stories, and they're writing at different paces. But writing a book for the shelf is really the ultimate exercise in creative thinking. We can attack a problem that we identify from so many different ways. A child who decides she wants to help cure cancer, she can do this, and she has a multiple of ways to do this. She can use her career and say, okay, I want to be a teacher, a researcher, a doctor, a policymaker. Or she can decide that she can play all of those roles over her lifespan. Or she can do it outside the career sphere and do it via philanthropy, fundraising, raising awareness. But once the book or the topic is identified, there are just 1,000,001 ways to get it on the shelf. It doesn't matter how silly or trite or even impossible the idea may seem. The point is to start writing. At some point in history, the desire to fly was laughable, but today it's a normal part of life. The metaphor we use to understand life is very important because it shows us our perspective. If we examine the way we currently journey through life, we would see that we set mile markers and then we trace a chronological line from birth to death. And it's often translated into this. So we say you have to get a decent education in order to get a job. You work hard at that job in order to make as much money as possible in order to be able to afford shelter and clothing and the necessities and niceties of life. Maybe settle down with a partner, maybe have some children, and then you retire and then you go back to that shelter that you bought and you sit on that porch. After you've retired, you watch your grass grow until you die. That's a cynical way of looking at life as a journey, but if we're honest with ourselves, we would see that we go through life like this, ticking off milestone after milestone until we reach the gravestone. But I submit that with the shelf metaphor, we look at our legacies in life, because this sort of long-range reverse thinking helps us to identify the book we want to write, but it also helps us to stay focused on what we need to do and not give unnecessary attention to distractions. And the communication experts would call this the ability to stay on message. Now, whereas this "what do you want to be when you grow up" question expires when we reach adulthood, the "what are you going to leave on the shelf" question is always valid. As adults, we can use this question to help us evaluate and measure our own productivity and how well we are coming along with leaving something on the shelf. Keeping this shelf question in mind can help guide us when we need to make decisions. And given that we can ask this question at any stage in our life, it helps us to recalibrate if we find ourselves in a rut. This is particularly helpful in transitional periods of our life. For example, after accomplishing a major goal, we can find ourselves asking the "what's next" question. And we encounter that "what's next" question when we have more time than dream. It happens when we accomplish all the goals that we've set, or the dreams that we had are all fulfilled and were not big enough. For example, a student who only sets a goal to get into and graduate from college will face the "what's next" question during graduation season. This brings me to an interesting characteristic of thinking of life in terms of the shelf. When we think in terms of the shelf, we're forced to evaluate our decisions and our goals and our dreams in terms of that final product, in terms of our legacy. And it helps us to not confuse the means with the ends. For the student whose goal it is to get into college and come out of college, if this person were to think of life in terms of the shelf, they would look at everything they study, all of their relationships, all of their experiences in college, and how they can help them shape them, how they can help them put something on the shelf. The answer or the answers to the shelf question should be robust enough that we spend our entire lifetime attempting to achieve it. It's okay if in writing our books we don't actually come up with a solution to a problem. You still write the book and you place it on the shelf because there are generations behind us who will pick up where we left off. And this is the beauty of the continuity of the shelf. It makes sure that our visions don't die. So as we write our books, we should be thinking about proper succession planning and thinking about the generations that will come behind us to finish off anything that we were not able to finish. Now, as I close, no good book metaphor would be complete without the 5 W's and the H. So let's put this speech on the shelf and wrap up with a quick recap. Who? Let all of us, what? View life as a bookshelf and ask ourselves, what can we leave on the shelf? When? For as long as we have breath. Where? Let's ask this question in every domain of our life, at home, at church, at school, in sporting arenas, in art, in music, entertainment. Why? Because Aristotle said that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So as we place our books on the shelf, we're helping to further development because we are working to increase the wisdom and knowledge available to solve problems. And finally, how? Each of us need to understand that we have a social responsibility to leave something behind. Collectively, we need to design societies that help to provide equal access to the books on the shelf so that people can have the tools that they need to write their books. Thank you.